thanks everybody for coming. We have very happy. We have some distinguished guests here, and I'm going to start with members from Culinary 226. And are we going to do introductions around the room? Let's go ahead and start with that. So go ahead and start, Liam, on your side of the table.
Sure. Liam Vachon, Vice President, also Paris Bell Captain, 40-year member of the union here in Las Vegas, Local 226.
Yeah.
Steve Enriquez, I'm a bellman at Signature, been there almost 19 years, with the union about the same time.
All right.
Lori Stadnicki, cocktail server at the Luxor. I've been with the union about 28 years, at the Luxor for 26.
Okay, awesome.
Alicia Watson, I'm with Golden Nugget. I've been there 17, been in the union 17.
All right, and what do you do at the Golden Nugget?
I'm a food server.
Yep. Okay.
Hello, my name's Cherie Earl. I'm a cocktail server at Mandalay Bay. I've been with the union 28 years, but at Mandalay Bay for 25 years.
Okay.
My name is Paul Anthony. I am a food server at the Bellagio. I have been there for 26 years. I've been a member of Culinary Union for 39 years.
My name is Tara Karani. I'm a server for HMS Host at the airport here, and I've been with Culinary for 7 years, along with at the airport for 7 and the union.
So I'm Ted Papa George, the Secretary Treasurer of the Culinary Workers Union. Look, we're also extremely happy and honored to have Congressman Steven Horsford here. Congressman Horsford is a fighter for workers. He's a leader, and he has been on our picket lines. He was a actual CEO of this training academy at one point. He's a Culinary Union member, and when we sat at the table with the IRS in 2022 on the other side of the table in negotiations, he sat at the table with us, and so we're really proud to have the congressman here. And you know, we're going to have a discussion, and we call it a roundtable, and we're going to get a chance to speak a little bit and for the congressman, and he's going to be able to hear us out, and we're going to be very happy to hear his comments too. So thank you for being here, Congressman.
Thank you, Ted.
I'm going to hand it over to you for a little bit of remarks, and I have some remarks too.
Okay. Well, look, first let me thank Ted and Leanne and Culinary Workers and Bartenders Workers Unions for your partnership, friendship, leadership over the years. This is, I'm home with family when I'm with the Culinary. You all started as kids apparently, because you've been working in the industry. You were like 10 years old when you started. But we're here, I'm here, because you matter to me. And the workers in Southern Nevada who built Las Vegas and who continue to make it the entertainment capital of the world are the reason that this issue is so important. And so I wanted the opportunity to hear directly from workers about where we are, what we need to continue to do, both at the federal level and here at the local level. First, congratulations on your historic wins recently with the contracts, the biggest wage increases, the biggest benefit increases that workers have received here in Las Vegas in history, really anywhere in hospitality. And that says so much about you and the strength of this union, and that when workers come together, there's nothing that we can't get. And I know that at a time when people are working harder and harder, you just want to be able to get ahead, to actually thrive, not just to survive. And that's why this roundtable is so important. I have some specific comments that I want to give on the issue, but I want to wait until I've heard from all of you before I share some of that perspective about where we are and the work that I hope we'll be able to do together after this roundtable. But thank you for taking the time out of your schedule. I know, again, you've got a lot of demands. School's about to start, and the summer's coming to an end. But I'm really proud to be your representative in Congress. We call it Congressional District 4, it's really Culinary District 4, because we have so many culinary workers who live in my district, whose families live in my district, and I'm always going to advocate for the issues of workers when it comes to the work that we do. So thank you, Ted, for allowing me to be here. Leanne, it's great to see you, and thank you to all of the workers who are here today.
All right, thank you, Congressman. So, look, I just have a couple comments, but then mostly we want to hear from you all. Look, we have a history. I mean, for 30 years we've been advocates and leaders in fighting at the culinary and bartenders unions for tip earners' rights to have taxes fairly, fair taxation. And we think that there's, the IRS has just swung too far. Now, there's been some, to get right to the bottom of it, there's been some proposals out there about eliminating taxes on tips. And, a lot of that is just some hot air sometimes from folks that are out there making promises. The difference at the Culinary Union and with, for example, Congressman Horsford or Senator Masto or Senator Rosen is that they've been working for years and years and years. It's a serious issue. And so how do we take it from, just some wild promises from President Trump to some actual reality with a serious issue? And that's the goal, really, of this roundtable, to build on the work that we've been doing. Because look, tip earners pay their taxes like everybody else. But tips are different. They're different than wages. And the issue of taxes on tips combined with this other major issue of sub-minimum wages. And in most states in the country, tip earners work for much less than minimum wage. In many states, $2.13 an hour. And we think that's just a huge problem. But you can't address one without the other. Because if you're going to make an argument that tips are different, they should be treated differently, well, then that also means that tip earners really deserve the same minimum wage as everybody else. And we think that's important. So in this roundtable, many of you have examples, experience with both. Working here in Nevada. Nevada is one of the 7 states without a sub-minimum wage. And we think that's because of us and the work that we've done along with our allies like Congressman Horsford and here folks at the state to make sure that tip earners have the right to a fair minimum wage. But all over the country, that's just not the case. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then I think our goal is to conduct our roundtable, and then we're going to have some opportunities to open things up to the press that's here. So with that, what I'd like to do is just go ahead and kind of go around the room. And here's the questions we'd like you to think about. So first of all, what do you think about the idea to end taxes on tip workers? Do you support it? Why or why not? And then as a tip worker, how do you feel about this idea of a sub-minimum wage that tip earners could work? And if you've had experience working in other states with a sub-minimum wage, we'd like to hear your experience with that. So let's just kind of go around the room, and I'm going to start with Leanne, our Vice President, Bell Captain for many years here in Las Vegas.
Okay, so my thoughts are this. It has to be equitable. We can't just think in terms of no tax on tips as a slogan. It's not a solution. Right now I'm thinking it's just a slogan that somebody's throwing out there in order to gain votes in Nevada and stuff like that, and to sort of separate us from thinking, okay, that sounds really good. We're not going to tax tips on workers, but then how does that apply to the rest of the states? What does that do to all the other folks around the country? Like I said about the minimum wage that they're paying and that they're talking about doing. I want to thank Horsford for being here because he was with us when we went to the IRS with Ted, and we actually talked to the IRS about being equitable with tip compliance. Now, those are some real solutions. we start talking about the tip compliance and how much people are making, how much we're paying on tips, because I thought, if I'm not mistaken, when we were there, the IRS actually took a slideshow and showed us where a keynote worker was making $1,500 a week in tips. We know that's not true. That was never true. So there's all kinds of ideas out there floating around, and in this political season, a lot of people will hear slogans and think, hey, that's a great idea. Maybe we should investigate and talk to this guy about that particular idea. But when you start to think about it and go in depth about that idea, that's what you have to think about, and that's when things start to change, because the devil is always in the details of how that's going to work. And instead we start to hear that, then we need to take a step back and say, okay, what does that entail? What does that do to the rest of the country? Are you just doing that because in Nevada, we make a great living here, thanks in part to the Culinary Union and the support that we've been getting from Congress and people who support the contracts and the legislation that we have here. A lot of other states don't have that stuff. They don't. So in order to just throw slogans out to appeal to Nevada because maybe it might be a toss-up state, we need to take a look at that. And not leave anybody behind, like the Culinary Union and our workers. We don't leave anybody behind. Doesn't matter where you live. We've got workers in affiliates all over the country. This will affect them also. So we have to think in terms of that. Those are really my thoughts. And I'm still processing all of this right now.
Good. Thanks, Lean. I'm going to go back and forth there, and obviously, Congressman, you may want to jump in if you have questions for folks. But Tara, why don't you talk to us a little bit? Again, the idea is, at the end of the day, what do you think about ending taxes on tips? Is that a good idea? Not? And then this idea of working with sub-minimum wage.
Well, first off, I had the first-hand experience of doing that in Ohio when I was in college. I worked for Darden Restaurants, and I worked the weekends, and then I would go back to classes on the weekday back to the campus. So I had that first-hand experience of 213. I never received a paycheck. One time it was a joke. I got a 2-cent paycheck because it was $2.13. But they're taking those taxes out of your hourly. And if your hourly is $2.13 and you come in, it could be the same thing, varying also here, but you're also dealing with a different situation. You're dealing with, we also are fortunate enough with Culinary to have the benefits, the support of everyone else. We didn't have that there. We didn't have those opportunities or that support. We created our own support for each other. But that 213 is a huge, they never receive, most of them never receive paychecks.
Yeah.
The taxes pull all of it.
Well, we definitely love the idea of no taxes on tips. Obviously, that's something that we have to talk about. But how do you feel about that?
Well, in the end, like you also said, there's a balance in that. We're all going to have to pay our share. But the overdone of what we're doing and the throwing it out there to the rest of the world is just saying we're going to do this taxing and tipping, but you have to look also at our industry. Like he said, is that person really making that? There's times we're not. There's times things change or people come through. So remember, everyone has their opinion of what stuff is, especially when you're tipping for a percentage. There's what's being said is tipped and what's not. So,
Let me throw something out here just for folks that are attending. Look, in Nevada and in other gaming states generally, there's what's called a tip allocation, and that's something that's negotiated between the companies, the big gaming companies, and the IRS. And that's basically the IRS saying, this is how much we think that you make per hour in your job on your shift, whether it's days, swing, or grave, in tips, and we're going to tax you on that amount. So that is really a bone of contention, and we've had a lot of back and forth with the IRS. And one of the things is that when you're represented by the Culinary Union, when you're represented by a union, then we have the ability to get in between that with the company and the IRS, where a lot of times unrepresented workers don't have the ability to do that. So, Steve, again, what do you think about the idea of no taxes on tips? And then Any experience? What do you think about this whole issue of some minimum wage?
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, you're talking about tip compliance or tip allocation. We, at Signature MGM, after pandemic, everybody shot up. We ended up probably tripling our tip compliance. On our average, we were losing $200 probably a paycheck, just in taxes. We weren't getting that money back. But fortunately, we were fortunate to use the Legal Aid Center and fight it. We fought it with the company and fought it, giving them figures and paperwork, and we finally got it lowered.
It took a while,
We're not where
right?
we want to be, but we did get it lowered, and that thanks to the attorney and again the employees fighting it and
Right.
coming up with paperwork, and we did lower it. We're not where we want to be, but it was tough. It was a big battle. Like Ted said, the company, they put a figure on that, and it's really hard to move that. It's too hard. It shouldn't be that hard. We were told that the IRS doesn't have enough bodies to send to properties to evaluate them, as we were told. That's one of the big problems.
Okay.
We wish the IRS had more people to send out to
Make sure it was
evaluate the property and see exactly what, we don't have a showroom, we don't have a big celebrity restaurant. We weren't making that kind of money, but we paid it for 3 years. We lost a lot of money, I had to get a second job. So it was tough. But like I said, we're kind of back to almost where we were pre-pandemic, so thankful for that. No taxes on tips. I think that's, it's kind of a slogan right now, like I said, and I'm not sure if I really buy it. I'm hopeful, but yeah, we're not counting on it. We want to pay our fair share of taxes, but just be fair about it, that's all.
Okay. I'm going to jump across here to Paul. Again, same thing. What do you think about the idea of no taxes on tips? And any experience and thoughts on this idea of the sub-minimum wage?
Now, for the sub-minimum wage, I've been blessed. I've been here my whole life, and I have not had to deal with that. And I've been practically my whole working life in the Culinary Union, so I've had a great wage, so I've been very blessed in that sense. But as far as the no taxes on tips thing, it's interesting because we could tell, or we see the difference between something you say at a political rally and something that is actual action that's being done. Okay, anybody say anything at any rally, especially in Nevada, we know that. But what I'm saying, I mean, of course, you're going to appeal to the people out there, itching ears when I hear that. But like I said, Congressman Horsford, you've been there with us. You've been there with us in meetings with the IRS. Been there in meetings with before, things like that. So that's not a campaign slogan. That's you being here for real. We very much appreciate you being here. Very, very much appreciate the things you've been doing with us, So we take some of that stuff. I mean, I think even for granted the support and the resources we have being in the union, because we have the ability to go and negotiate and talk to the IRS, things like that. What Steve was talking about with the tip compliance, a lot of people forget it's an estimate. And now they're good at it, but it's an estimate. They are forecasting what they think you're going to make that day. There's not an exact science. That's what they are forecasting. And there are days when we get tip compliance every hour that we work. They charge a certain amount every hour. Some days when we come into work as a food server, there are parties that the gratuity will go on our paychecks. We get charged for that fully, but we also get allocated fully for that day. Now, when we brought this to the IRS before, we brought this to their attention, they said it was put into the figure or whatever other than that. I don't know if they could do that. Once again, this is something that is forecasted. So the ability to do that, I mean, to even be more fair and reduce those, that's, I think, is a more realistic option than just no taxes on tips. If they go back and look at the numbers and be realistic with it, I think we'd appreciate that more, and that would be something that would benefit everybody in Nevada, and especially here in Las Vegas.
Okay, let me jump over to Lori. Again, same question. What do you think about no taxes on tips? Because look, I was a tip earner for many years. My parents were tip earners, and You know, the idea of that sounds good. And then, but what about again, this idea of sub-minimum wage, if you've ever had any experience with that?
Oh, yeah, I'm from Ohio as well, and I had 2 different restaurant jobs for $2.13 an hour. And it was brutal. I mean, you didn't ever make a paycheck, ever. And it was hard to live on the tips that you did make.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was hard. As far as no taxes on tips, we know that's never gonna happen. I just want it to be fair, that's all.
Yeah.
You know, and I appreciate you guys helping us get there.
Okay. Okay. All right. Cherie?
I feel like no taxes on tips. Just like what Leanne said, it is a slogan to get votes. And you gotta consider the person that proposed it is a criminal and has been convicted. I feel like cheating doesn't get us anywhere. It should be fair, and I feel like with the companies making so much money, they're not considering the employees. It's the same dollar from 25 years ago that they're still giving. They're not increasing it. If anything, it's more work, more drinks, $1, 5 drinks, $1. And we're being taxed more and more, thinking that, oh, the more drinks we produce, the more money we're making. When we're not, it's less. A lot of tip earners are having a hard time keeping up with it because it is the taxes and also inflation is trickling down. People don't want to spend as much money or give as much money service, so we are experiencing that. We did win a great contract. I'm happy about that, but the raises we're not seeing again because of the taxes and the allocation for the tipped earners. So if it could be fixed or looked at, I do believe we do need to pay taxes, but make them fair for all of us.
Have you had experience with the sub-minimum wage?
I haven't. I've been fortunate to just work here in Nevada, so I don't.
Look, that's an interesting contrast too, because we're one of the few states that doesn't have sub-minimum wage, but that's been through a lot of hard work, and because we know that every so often the industry looks to push that. Alicia, tell us a little bit about what are your thoughts about no taxes on tips? Again, most folks that I talk to say, sure, you know, but tell us your thoughts about it, either pro or against, and then any experience with sub-minimum wage.
I'm actually born and raised right here in Vegas, so I've only known Culinary Union. And sub-minimum wage, I can't speak on it from experience, but I can say just from tip compliance, right? So my paycheck used to cover my mortgage, and then when the tip compliance went up so high, it does not anymore. So I can't even imagine like a sub-minimum wage, what that would do, because it's already a struggle, because like Sherry said, we're not making the money we used to make. It just is what it is, because people don't have the money they used to have. It's everywhere, it's all around. It's not just in our industry, it's everywhere. So people are a little more conservative with their dollar. And so we see that a lot. And so I do feel like with no taxes on tips, that's not the answer. Like that's not a thing, that's not what it is. But if we could get with the IRS and maybe have them look over what we have to pay for tip allocation and things of that sort. Because I don't know if they factor in, we also have people we have to tip out. So the money that we get isn't only for us. It's for the bartenders that the cocktail waitresses have to tip out, and the bar help. For us, it's the bussers and the runners. So the money that we make is already less, and then less, and then less. So that's hard. That's hard to deal with. So I feel like if that could be a thing, then we'd be okay. If we could get tip allocation down, I think we'd be okay.
Let me throw a couple of comments out here, and then Congressman, I know you have some comments too, but look, one of the things that we've been saying for quite a while as Culinary Union members is that, you know, we've got, the economy has come back. We're very thankful that the Biden-Harris administration for us brought our jobs back and brought our economy back from COVID, because hospitality industry was crushed from COVID, and we're extremely thankful. The economy's back. But we all know that we've got to deal with the prices of, the price of food, the price of gas and housing too, and we've seen that. And for most workers, that they have to, get their kids to school, and they have to get to work on time, and these are the issues they're facing every day, and the taxes on tips and the sub-minimum wage, that is a working voter issue. It's right in line with that, and that's why we really appreciate the fact that, again, our two senators have stepped up to the plate, Senator Masto and Senator Rosen, to jump into the bills. But what we really appreciate is Congressman Horsford really taking leadership to move forward with something that can take on this issue of taxes on tips, but also the sub-minimum wage, because, look, we think nobody should have to work for $2.13 an hour for whatever the excuses are. And we do think tips are different than wages. They're different, and we've got to get to a point where we can treat them differently. And so we'd love to hear your comments, Congressman, and then I know that we want to open it up for questions.
Yeah. Well, look, first, I really appreciate you each sharing your own experience as workers in the industry, both those of you who have lived in other states, who have seen the effects of a sub-minimum wage, whatever the hell that is. Minimum wage is hard enough for people to live off of. But also to remind everybody that Nevada is actually the gold standard when it comes to this issue. That we are the gold standard when it comes to helping lift up workers. The fact that Nevada is only one of 7 states without a tipped credit says a lot about what the workers with your union have done to make these jobs good jobs, not just jobs, but careers. And that means regardless of whether a worker earns a tip or not, you're earning full minimum wage. And here in Nevada, that's $12 an hour. Now, even at that rate, people are struggling. It's hard enough to make ends meet. But in most states, they don't even have that protection. As you've shared, and as I've looked into this issue, tipped workers make as low as $2.13 an hour, and the most is $6 an hour. And then I started to go back into the history to understand where the hell does this come from? What is a sub-minimum wage? It's a poverty wage. And of course, you look back at it, and it's following the emancipation of slaves, where black workers were locked into no wage status for what was usually menial labor. Employers would hire black workers for 0 wages and say that they could instead keep whatever gifts customers left them, gifts. Well, tips are a gift. They're not a guarantee. You can't live off of a gift. You need the protection that comes from a livable minimum wage. And what I find astounding about this is that this wage, this sub-minimum wage, has fluctuated. Back in 1966, tipped workers were guaranteed a minimum wage. Well, in 1966, that's when we guaranteed workers a federal minimum wage. But 50% of whatever that wage was went to tipped workers, 50%. But then in 1991, the sub-minimum wage for tipped workers was lowered and capped at $2.13 an hour, thanks to tip credits. So they give it and they take it away. And this is why I say tips are a gift, not a guarantee. And people are trying, some of these employers are trying to keep workers in poverty wages. We need to break that. We need to break this idea that people can work for less than a fair minimum wage. And to me, that's a livable wage. Since emancipation 150 years ago, guaranteed federal wages have only increased a little more than $2 an hour for tipped workers. That's just plain wrong to me. And so, at a time when the former president is literally making promises to big corporations to cut their taxes, he's trying to sell I call it a scheme. You called it a slogan. He doesn't care about workers. He only cares about himself. He's proven that time and time again. He didn't care about the workers who worked for him to pay them. He only cares about getting votes, not about solving problems. And this issue is not an easy issue. I did sit in a negotiation with the union, with your workers, and with the IRS. That was a tough-ass negotiation around the tip allocation. And it was all around this averaging over multiple years and, pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. And I said, meanwhile, workers just want to make a living. And I want to commend you because every one of you said something that really hits me right now. You each said that you want to pay your fair share. Even though you're not always getting paid your fair share, you want to pay your fair share of taxes that's fair and equitable. We got big corporations and billionaires and ultra wealthy that don't want to even pay a little bit more, let alone their fair share. But that's the heart of working people. We understand that there is no free ride. We believe in doing our part because we want better schools. We want better health care. We want roads that we can drive on. We understand that this stuff isn't free, but that should come with some protections. And for me, one of those protections is to reform, eliminate the sub-minimum wage, which is poverty wages to me. It's slave wages to me. We need to reform it, we need to end it, and we need to bring those jobs up to the Nevada standard of minimum wages of at least the federal minimum wage. And on top of that, we need to address our tax policy so that it's fair and equitable. And whether that's through the tax allocation process, whether that's fixing the tax on tips. But let me say again, tips are a gift, not a guarantee. And we have to be very careful not to put a burden on workers for something that you have no guarantee you're going to be paying it or you're going to get it anyway. We know that, unfortunately, when business declines, tips decline. But the rent is still due at the first of the month. Bills start to pile up, and entire communities can feel the effects of unpredictable incomes. And I commend President Biden and Vice President Harris and Democrats, including myself, who worked hard during the pandemic to shore up communities like Las Vegas, to help workers get the support that they need, to help keep our businesses open so that they could keep people employed or connected to their insurance. That was the issue you all fought for, was to make sure you got your insurance, that didn't lapse. That was the fight that I was involved with, and this fight is no different for me. So I'm not here for a slogan. I'm not here for a scheme. I'm here to find solutions. And you all have already identified several. Number one, we're the standard. Nevada is the standard, and we need to make Nevada the standard for the country around sub-minimum wage jobs. Number two, tips are a gift, not a guarantee. And number three, we need more fair and equitable tax policy. And big corporations, ultra-wealthy people should pay their share before we ask workers to do more, because you're already willing to do your part, and you're already doing more than enough. So I'm going to continue to work with you. I'm preparing legislation around this issue. My staff is working with the tax committee. I'm been a member of the Ways and Means Committee in the past and hope to return again. And regardless, I'm going to advocate for these solutions, because I know that we can get them done, not only to help protect workers here, because you're absolutely right. There have been attempts to take us back, to roll back those protections. This is the thing. The protection that we have is only as secure as the next election. They can remove it. That's why we need a federal solution that lifts all workers, not just Nevada and the 6 other states, but one that lifts all workers, particularly in your industry. So I look forward to continuing to learn from you, to listen, and to lead on this issue. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Congressman. Thank you. We can clap for that. Yes, we can.